We're going to put a small video of a part. It's not complete because it's not the part of the elderly people, or what the apostles in Paraguay did this week.
Gracias, apóstoles de Paraguay, por siempre estar dispuestos a hacer todo lo que sea necesario para expandir
everything necessary to expand the kingdom of the two hearts and build a new civilization of love. There it doesn't appear another thing that they sent me, which was that nearby the schools, they seek the poorest schools to do these works, but there's always sick people, elderly people who are alone and who are sick. And so they don't have anybody to cook for them. And so they took food for them, all those who are sick in the area. That didn't appear. And thank you, I love you, and I appreciate everything that you do to carry out our charism. Now let us continue with the teaching, which is left halfway. Last Saturday, we were speaking about the importance of knowing how to discern the signs of the times. I won't repeat it. But then we concluded something that is the necessary points to know how to discern the signs of the times. And remember that, yes, I will repeat, that was the definition of St. John Paul II of what it doesn't mean to discern the signs of the times. It means to know, to look for what gives witness, not only what men and women do, but what God does in history, particularly in every generation. I'm so proud that we can say that what we have done to build a better place, even stone by stone. We have to see the good and also the evil that man has done, and how did God respond? How did heaven respond before those evils? And we know that one of the greatest responses has been to send His Blessed Mother. One of the great responses. Not the only an exclusive one, but the most important. It has been the constant sending in the last 2 centuries of Our Lady. That's why the purpose of the pilgrimage. That's the reason why we're going on pilgrimage and to go to so many places where Our Lady has appeared, because we want to see in the Marian geography what did she do in every historic moment, and that itinerary together has a direct implication for our history today. And that's what we're going to study in the pilgrimage, to arrive at clear conclusions, to be able to read the signs of the times that come to us through her maternal mediation. We also saw, and I think I speak to so many people that I don't know what do I say to whom. We also saw amongst the lights of the last century of the great saints, and we didn't mention all of them, right? Because, well, let's begin with Saints Jacinta and Francisco, the shepherd children. And we can see Blessed Pier Giorgio. Well, we know Saint Pio, Mother Teresa. Soon, on May 4th, Conchita Hermina will be beatified. I'm very happy about that. From the last century. Saint Populusco, those who went with us to Poland, we know very well of whom we're speaking about. So many martyrs, the Claretian martyrs in the Civil War of Spain. How many were canonized from the Civil War? Saint Maximilian. We have so many. Saint Nita Stein, Saint Gemma Galgani, she was, and Saint Teresa of Lisieux, and she was made a doctor of the church in the last century. So we have many lights in the last century. But then I want to speak about those lights that have to do with us. So all of this is important to include when we're discerning the signs of the times. What has God done before darkness? To send His mother. But He's also done something else. To lift up great lights, men and women, holy men and women, that become in history in great chandeliers, which the Gospel says we have to put it very much on high. On top of the mountain. For what? So that it could illumine the entire house. So that it could illumine the surroundings. That's why St. John Paul II canonized so many and beatified so many, not because he was inventing saints, but because he said, among so much darkness, God had to have raised up great lights. And I have to, like the high priest, lift them up on high. The high is the altars. So that they can illumine with their lives and the example of their lives. They can illumine the darkness of our times, but illumine also our own lives. Because they already died. They're already enjoying heaven, even though they don't forget about us. But every saint is a school of holiness. And we have to ask ourselves a lot of questions today. When we are called that holiness is the urgent mission of the Church. And it's true, brothers and sisters. If we were able to count all the apostolates in the world, we wouldn't finish. And it's very important that we see it, not because I want to put apostolates, undermine the apostolates, or minimize them. But on the contrary, one of the fruits of the faith are the works. Are there brothers and sisters that only faith is enough? A faith without works? James said, Jesus' cousin, in his letter said, a faith without works is a faith that's dead. But brothers and sisters, works without holiness don't have any fecundity. And so why, when we've tripled the apostolates in the entire world, we have more people who are far away from God? What an important question to ask, right? When parishes, at least the majority, are very active, and there are groups from A to Z, they don't even know what names to invent for groups. And there's some names for groups that I would change them. names of groups that have such bizarre names. And I think, oh dear, look for a more Christian name that represents more the gospel. But what does this mean? That they don't know what else to put, what other name to put. Since there's so many apostolates. But we have to ask ourselves a very mature question. Why, if apparently the church is so active, we have more people away from the church? Why do we have more people without faith? Why, in general, the world is the world without God? And this is a truth. I'm not exaggerating. And so we have to ask ourselves this question because the economists and finance people are right here cracking their brains to see how to add things up. If we had a true church, a truly active church with saints, we wouldn't have the relativism, the dictatorship of relativism so spread about, and we wouldn't have such an extended atheism that we have today. And so what is the response that we can give? That the solution isn't the multiplication of apostolates. The solution is the multiplication of holy saints, of saints who lead those apostolates. And that's why St. John Paul II insisted so much that I think no one paid attention to him. That the mission, the greatest and most urgent mission of man, that since we're talking about the Pope, that since 1979 until the day he died, he spoke to us about the new evangelization. He said the new evangelization is the task of the church of the end of the 20th century, of the end of the third millennium. We owe it to him, the new evangelization, with his 25 definitions. This man, who had such a great apostolic zeal, it was so great, his apostolic zeal, that we know that he went around the world 3 times. That nothing detained him to go seek his flock, to be present like a good shepherd when his people suffered. His apostolic zeal was so great that even when he was in agony, he was asked to be taken to the window, the window of his bedroom, to say his last goodbye to all those young people who were there. But he said his most beautiful phrase, and he wrote it because he couldn't speak anymore. I went to look for you, now you have come to look for me. But he wanted, even when he was dying, to go out to the window, continue to minister, at least not with words, but with presence. This man who had such great apostolic zeal, we're going to speak about that. He's the one who spoke to us most about holiness. And he clearly said in Tercio Milenio Ineunte, the letter that he gave us on January 6, 2001, to initiate the third millennium, he said, the boat to put out into the deep, Duc in altum. The time has come to put out into the deep in the oceans of the contemporary world. He knew that he wasn't asking us for something easy. But in that same letter, he said that it is indispensable that the oars of holiness be the one who directs the movement of the boat. You can't just with one oar. You need 2. Have you ever tried to row with only one oar? You turn and turn and turn. And so I think that's what happened to the Israelites, but when they were afoot in the desert. They did so many turns, 4 years, and then the promised land was right in front of them. The same can happen to us. Oh, a turkey apparently does a lot of turns. And the promised land, Mother used an illustration that the Israelites were turning like like turkeys. But those who read our history in 2,000 years, they're going to tell us how dumb we were. Because we need 2 oars so that the boat can advance. And the 2 oars are holiness and mission. Not the reverse. Not mission and then holiness. Holiness that produces, that engenders, that burns you from inside to go out on mission. The mission is the fruit of holiness. We not see the lives of the saints. When St. John Paul II spoke about the new springtime of the church, which we have not arrived at it, let's be clear, on the contrary, we are in the winter. We haven't arrived at the new springtime. But he said in a prophetic way. He said that we will see a new springtime in the church, and this reminds me of the prophecy that I read to you in the last class. The one of the charismatic renewal in 75. Days of darkness will come to the church, but then there will be days of glory. But brothers and sisters, St. John Paul II, who knew that there would be a new springtime in the church, he also told us that that new springtime was holiness. Men and women that would fully become men and women of holiness. And we know, I'm not going to give a course on Marian consecration, but we know that one of the effects of total consecration to Our Lady is that she is the one entrusted with forming the saints. That's why there's no saint, and if you find one, bring them to me, please. There's no saint in the life of the church that did not have first a profound relationship with Our Lady. And that Our Lady, the Lady was able to accomplish, the only thing that she can accomplish, use her maternity to give birth to Christ. That's why she's the formator of saints. Without her, holiness is difficult, and I won't repeat the story of the latter. Without her, holiness has no context, has no structure, no mold. Without her, holiness has no star. I want to be a saint. I hear this so often. The only desire that I have, Mother, is I want to be a saint. And how are you going to do that? Well, I'm thinking about it, how that's going to come out. Well, you can tell that it's not understood what holiness is. Holiness is very simple. It's to be another Christ. It's very simple. To be another Christ. And to be another Christ, you have to be born from whom? From Our Lady. You have to look like Him in everything. Even to say, like St. Paul said, it is not I who live, but Jesus Christ who lives in me. Until we get to that degree of self-emptying, emptying our minds, our own thoughts, and allow the thoughts of Christ to direct and rule our thoughts, until I empty my sentiments and allow the sentiments of Christ to direct my own sentiments or my way of feeling, until I empty myself of my plan, and allow the plan of God to be the only one I desire, until I live and only for Christ, in Christ, and to serve Christ, we can't say that we have attained holiness. We can say that we're looking for it, but we haven't attained it. Therefore, brothers and sisters, the new springtime will be based absolutely based on holiness. What does the church need the most of? Let's be honest. What does the church need the most of? Saints. Saints. Saintly women, saintly men. Because it's the saints, the ones who truly reveal the splendor of the face of the church. Tell me we don't need saints. The saints, because of the coherency of their Christian life, the coherency of their fidelity to God, their lives molded by the gospel and by its fruitful fecund mission, because they did everything for God, even in the most difficult places and the most difficult circumstances. They are the ones who say, that is the church of Jesus Christ. That's why we need many more saints. Because for many, because of the sin of the members of the church, which all of us are the members of the church, the face of the mother is lacerated. The face of the mother is dirtied. And how are we going to clean it? How are we going to tell the world, no, 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 no. Look at this saint, look at that saint. That is the true reflection of the face of the church. That's why, brothers and sisters, more than ever, we need saints. And when there are saints, there's a fruitful mission, and there's a mission without limits. You know that the saints didn't limit themselves to the mission? Have you heard? Each one of you has patron saints, or the saints to whom you're inclined, or the one you like the most, the saint that has obtained the most miracles for you. But I want to know how many times you've read their lives. That's what's important. To read the lives of the saints. Because they are the school of holiness. And there are saints for every color. There are saints for each one of us. There are saints that really affect you deeply and profoundly. Well, read their lives. What does this saint have to tell me today? Raise your hand, those who are devoted to Saint Padre Pio. All of us almost. Now I'm going to ask you, why? What are you attracted about Padre Pio? His life? Okay. What does his life have to tell us? And I'm not saying that not all of you have stigmas, because none of you here have stigmata. What attracts you to Saint Padre Pio? Because holiness is attractive more than magnets. His humility, his sacrifice, his total obedience before the unjust orders. Total love for Our Lady. So much so that Our Lady healed him from an illness. He was passing by a helicopter. What does Saint Padre Pio have to teach us concretely? A man that spent 18 hours, even 20 hours in the confessional, with long lines of people. Even it said also that people were 3 days in line waiting to go to confession. And Saint Padre Pio wasn't an easy cookie. And so, why did people want to confess with him? Because they knew that he read their sins, and they wanted to come out clean from every sin, even of the ones that they didn't remember. And Saint Padre Pio wasn't going to tell them, oh, my dear, it's okay. God is merciful. No, Saint Padre Pio was telling them, you've offended God, and you can't do it again. I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to grant you the pardon, but with the condition that you don't do it again. That was Padre Pio. And you're devoted to him, right? And so seek confessors that are tough love if you're devoted to Saint Padre Pio. But what else does Saint Padre Pio have to say? That if he's spent 18, 20 hours confessing, hearing confessions, and if you're devoted to him, what should be the mark of your life? Confession. You have to be men and women who regularly go to confession. Because with what kind of face are you going to tell him, Padre Pio, I love you, Padre Pio. Oh, Padre Pio, you manifest yourself so much to me. And he's going to tell you, I have a sister who's very devoted to Padre Pio, and she's dreaming for him to appear to her. And one day I said, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when he appears to you? I only want him to hear my confession. And I said, good. Continue to ask him to appear to you. How many people here are devoted to Saint Teresa of Lisieux? Less, but there are. Well, all the sisters. What attracts you to Saint Therese? The little rose petal that she gives you. No, because she doesn't give rose petals to everyone. What attracts you to Saint Therese of Lisieux? The legacy that she left the church. That's what should attract us. The path of littleness. Tell me if that school is not necessary in the modern world where everybody wants to be great, big, and to have the biggest positions and the degrees from the universities that are the best degrees, the best universities, the world of greatness, fame, power. And don't think I'm speaking to you about the world. I'm speaking to each one of you. Because unless we realize that smoke, we breathe it. And in our decisions, it's manifested that we've breathed that smoke. It's manifested. If we seek the path of holiness, or if we're seeking the path of greatness, and the path of greatness is not the gospel, because he said to enter the kingdom of God, you have to be like little children. You have to be little. And so what do we have to learn from Saint Therese of Lisieux? The littleness. Not seeking, oh, I haven't been put in an important ministry. Just clean the toilets. That's what it means to be devoted to Saint Therese. They never sign me up for anything. We'll sign up for the most insignificant, the smallest thing. Saint Therese is telling us, learn to be overjoyed by the little things, not learn to have just little things. One day I was walking with some people and we're speaking about the spirit of littleness. And we're in the garden of 1,000 flowers. Pick the flower that you like the most. What did everybody get? The rose. And they were fighting over a color of the rose, and there weren't that many. And I got the smallest one. The little daisies that are born like hidden, that's the one I got. A part that it's a daisy, St. Margaret Mary. Margaret in Spanish is a daisy. And when I appeared with my daisy, everybody had these great roses. And I said, what does Saint Therese of Lisieux have to teach us? Total silence. I said, it's not the path of littleness. To rejoice in the little things. That's why we don't, you know why we don't live happily? Because this is the era of the unhappiness. Because everybody wants to be aspiring to something and more and more and more, instead of enjoying with the little daisy that you have. That daisy made your day. God created it so you can see it. God created so that you can pick it up. And million things like that. No, because my husband is not another Jesus Christ. Well, are you another Blessed Virgin Mary? Well, if we're going to do comparatives, we're always seeking for more and more and more. The culture of more, brothers and sisters. The culture of sadness. Because it's impossible to get everything in life. We're going to get everything from heaven. In heaven when we get there. It's time of the saints. It's the time of learning to be saints. Who's devoted to Saint Maximilian Kolbe? And good. When I asked myself that question, how devoted I am to Saint Maximilian Kolbe? Not when I went to Nepocalanao, that city of the Immaculate. That logically, it's not even half of what it was in the time of Saint Maximilian, but I didn't ask myself there. I was super happy there. He lived there, and he lived here, and he built this church, this chapel, and here, and here, here. I even saw his habit. It's a miracle that his habit was preserved, because Nazis would burn habits. I didn't find out there that I was devoted to him. I realized that I was devoted to him when I went to the bunker, the starvation bunker, and those little narrow paths to get there. And when I entered that starvation bunker, where he died, where he was and where he died. And I asked myself that question, what would I do if I was there? Would I sing and teach the other 9 to sing to Our Lady, pray to Our Lady, or would I be, get me out of here, get me out of here. My God, get me out of here. When I realized what that man lived, his last days starving to death, but nourishing like a priest, like a true priest, nourishing souls of those 9 who would die. And people outside would only hear songs and singing instead of hearing blasphemies and screams. There we have to ask our question. Am I devoted to Saint Maximilian Kolbe? Not even when I go to Lourdes. And then I know that he sat in that grotto and he was healed there by Our Lady. Not even by all his many writings. One day they're going to have to make him a doctor of the church. Brothers and sisters, his life, he reflected it in his death. Because how we die, how we live, we die. St. Paul says, how we live, we die. St. Paul says. That's why I tell you that to enter into the pedagogy of holiness, we have to ask ourselves, who is devoted here to St. John Bosco? Very few of you. He's such a great father of the youth. All of us should be devoted to St. John Bosco. What does St. John Bosco have to teach us? I wish that St. John Bosco would appear today and would speak to all parents. What would he tell them? That man that one day dreamed, his first dream, because we always know of the 2 pillars, but we don't know the other 39 dreams. But the first dream, Our Lady appeared to him. Mary, Help of Christians, of course. And says, I want you to do something that's going to be difficult for you, but it's necessary. And in this, Our Lady opened her mantle like that, and many children came out. Many little boys and girls came out. That their behavior, St. John Bosco said, they appeared like animals without any education, fighting one another. It was a movie of little gangsters. And Our Lady says, I want you to take them as your children, as your sons and daughters. Devoted to St. John Bosco, huh? I want you to take them as your sons and daughters and turn them into men and women of goodwill. And St. John Bosco said, where are they? Because he never related with any of those kind of people. And then Our Lady said, the poorest neighborhoods of Turin. The next day, St. John Bosco went to the poorest neighborhoods of Turin, and he lived exactly what Our Lady revealed to him. But he took on his mission, and he became the father to those children. And the example of St. John Bosco the example of St. John Bosco, other men followed him, and that's why we have the Salesians. Because other men followed the holiness of this man, that not being their blood children, he was willing to be knifed. Remember that dog that looked like a wolf that was going to eat him alive, and he hit him with the rosary and he left? How many dangers did St. John Bosco didn't go through to fulfill his mission? But, however, from those streets of Turin, from those children that look like little animals, men and women of good started to come out. And then those men became Salesians. And then that's how the schools began. The schools began with the ones that he first had worked with. And so when they say, I'm going to put my son or my daughter in La Salle, well, who founded La Salle? No, not who's there now. No, who founded it? And how did he found it? That's why to be devoted to St. John Bosco is to read his life. To read what it meant for him. What it meant for them to live the will of God. How many people, oh mother, I'm very devoted to Saint Gemma Galgani. Super devoted. And I very prudently stayed quiet, but I thought, and why? She's super miraculous, that Santa Gemma. Of course she's very miraculous because she suffered a lot here on earth. Well, the Lord recompenses her in heaven, obtaining many graces for her devoted. But what does her life have to tell you? Oh, don't even tell me because that the devil burned her, that the devil did this. I don't want any of that. And apart from that, she had stigmatas, and I'm terrified of blood. And so I said, change saints. Change saints, because find one that's more modern. I don't know. Do you realize, brothers and sisters, that we treat holiness very lightly? Very lightly, very superficially. And that's what I want today. The only message that I want to leave you is that what do the saints have to tell us today? Because the saints already fulfilled their mission. They already died. They did all the works that God asked, paying with blood every single work. But we are the ones called to be the saints of the third millennium. We have the same temperaments. Oh, Mother, it's so dangerous. How are we going to go there? I am so proud of my young people that they go with the sisters at 9 o'clock at night under the bridges giving food to the homeless, and they're best friends with the homeless. And at the beginning, some parents would tell me, and who's going to take care of them? And I said, well, the Holy Spirit. But don't worry that in 2 days, the ones who will take care of them are the homeless people. And that's how it is. That's how it is. And every day more young people go, and they're coming from a long day of school to cook first, because the ready plate and the nuns already cooked. No, you already just give the plate. No. You cook, you prepare the plate, and you give it. And you not only give it, but sit and speak with them. It was so beautiful that the other day, all the young people were praying a rosary for a man that I didn't know. They were praying a rosary in the chapel for a man I didn't know. And I asked, who's that man? I thought it was the dad of one of the young people. A homeless man who died. Brothers and sisters, that's the education that we have to give our children. The kind of education. That's the kind of education. Men and women that were intrepid, and like Queen Esther said, and if I perish, I perish. And when one says that, the Lord protects us. If it's His will, because if He wants us in heaven quickly, He'll allow us to go. I would love that. But brothers and sisters, the saints are men and women who are intrepid, who do things that weren't even part of their culture. Can you imagine Margarita, John Bosco's mom, when St. John Bosco said, Mom, I'm going to the poorest neighborhoods, the worst neighborhoods in Turin. She probably said at the beginning, son, are you sure you know what you're doing? And then he responds, yes, Our Lady asked. Oh, okay, if Our Lady asked it, I not only support you, we have to canonize her. I support you, but I also will unite to the cause. That's a mother. Not the mothers that when the children say, I'm thinking of becoming a priest, and they say, no, what's going to happen to me? I wanted grandchildren. I tell the mothers, woman, you wanted grandchildren? Well, you're going to have millions. You're not going to know what to do with them. If your daughter becomes a religious and if your son becomes a priest. But when will I see him? He's here. There's some dramas, and those dramas don't give support for vocations to flourish, for vocations to be born, and for them to become saints. We give in such a melodrama. In my times, that wasn't that long ago, okay. I remember as a teenager, and they would say, do you know who's going to become a priest? And you saw the family so proud of that. So proud that God had looked upon someone of their own blood and had chosen him. And when someone wanted to become a religious, the family was very happy. Because I want to tell you something. There's no greater blessing to have a consecrated soul in their womb. That family is not the same for God. So that you know, you have such a great mother-in-law or father-in-law. And we're witnesses that God does not abandon his family when he's asked us to leave the family. God never abandoned us. On the contrary. He turns atheists. He converts atheists. He fixes broken families. They know what love is. And I have always said, the transaction is uneven because they lose one, but they gain 100. Brothers and sisters, holiness is born at home. Don't think that the school is going to form them. Holiness is born at home. So at home is where you teach your children, your sons and daughters, what priorities are. Priorities. If you teach them that the priority is a sport, which I have nothing against sports, I was in sports, but with clear priorities. No one removed my prayer groups from me. And if there was a national game, I didn't go because I have my prayer group to go to. Since when they're young, you form priorities in them. God is number one. Oh, I don't want to go to Mass because I don't want to. Well, there's 2 ears. You grab one? Oh, mother, but then they're going to hate God for that. Some, sure. But it goes away. But to others, maybe it's going to save them. Your responsibility is not to know what they're going to do in the future. With your discipline, your responsibility is to discipline them, not to be rigid with them, but to discipline them. It's a time of great saints. Because the saints tell the world something that's very important. That God is greater than everything. That God is sufficient. That grace is stronger than sin. Beginning with us, right? Imagine. We convert not by our own grace, but by the grace of God. They tell humanity that there's something greater, to a world that's without any meaning. I don't know if you're worried, but I am very worried. Why so much suicide? Why there is so much suicide? And let me tell you something. The city manager of Miami was telling us that the suicides in Miami have increased in such a way that a little while ago, a lady threw herself from the 10th floor she threw her baby first and then she threw herself. What does that sound like? Demonic. The devil is loose. And the saints tie him down. And why do the saints tie him down? Because holiness has power. Holiness has power. And the devil is afraid of saints. He's not afraid of the mediocre ones because he fools them or he tricks them. But to the saints, he can't do that. He's afraid of them. But I want to ask you that we begin a chain of prayer to St. Michael the Archangel to clean this city from that malignant spirit and to add fasting to that. Because there are certain spirits that only with prayer and fasting are eliminated. I think the spirit of death requires much prayer and much fasting. That's why Our Lady asks for it so much. Saints are very human people. We think, not we, but some people think that saints lived with their eyes up in the air, almost like walking on air, like if earth didn't matter. Where did you read those saints? Do you know those saints? Because if Saint Teresa, the mother of mysticism, when Jesus appeared to her and she had to cook, Jesus would say, "Now I'm going to leave you so you can go and cook." Saint Faustina, when Jesus was appearing and was knocking the bells. Oh, it was Saint Faustina's task to ring the bell, and Jesus here present. What do I do? And Jesus did not disappear. It would have been pretty easy, right? Jesus remained there and he said, "Obey." The bell is the voice of obedience, and obedience is first an apparition. That's what it means to be a saint. Grace transforms the world, and grace, God communicates grace through His saints. We're not speaking about sacramental grace, which is the grace par excellence. It's the grace of holiness. When a saint passes by, you feel it, right? You can sense it. Because when St. John Paul II passed by in the Pope Mobile, maybe he looked like that tiny. People would fall on their knees crying. Converted. Immediate conversions. Because holiness pierces the human heart. Holiness has such a strength, to attract men and women not towards himself. He never attracted anybody towards himself. No, he took them to Christ and his mother. So many stories of St. John Paul II. So many conversions, so many healings, and we were witnesses of healings that took place just by him passing by, like the Acts of the Apostles. When the apostles passed by, only by their shadows, people would get healed. Well, this was by the super shadow, because he passed by quickly in the Pope Mobile. People would be delivered from immune spirits. People who were sick without any cure were cured. People who were sick in the soul converted. That's the power of holiness. Tell me if the world today doesn't need it.
Pero necesitamos muchos
But we need
santos.
many saints.
Necesitamos muchos.
We need many saints.
¿Y que a quién nos va a tocar ser?
And who are the ones who have to
Ay,
be
no,
them?
eso dejémoselo para la Madre Adela.
We're going to leave that for Mother Adela.
Sí, yo tengo una obligación de santidad.
Yes, I have an
Claro que la
obligation
tengo.
to holiness. Yes,
Todos
I
los
have it.
días me pregunto y
And
me
every
hago un
day I ask
examen de
myself and I do an
conciencia
examination of a
radicalísimo
radical examination of
para ver si he
conscience
vivido en santidad.
to see if I'm living in
Pero no
holiness.
solamente es mía,
But
es
it's not
de
only
todos.
mine, it's all of us, all
Y
ours.
Juan Pablo repitió
And
500
John Paul
veces lo
II
que dijo el
repeated
Concilio
500 times what
Vaticano
Second
II.
Vatican Council said.
La santidad es una
Holiness is
vocación
a vocation, a
universal.
universal
¿Por
vocation.
qué ustedes creen que él canonizó
Why do you think he
todas las
canonized
vocaciones?
all vocations?
El primer papa que
The first
canonizó
pope who
a todas las
canonized
vocaciones.
all the vocations. That he was
Ya
the one.
después los que vienen
Then
ya
the ones who
siguieron.
followed, well, they copied him.
Pero ¿por qué canonizó a Santa
But
Yana
why
Mola?
did he canonize Saint Jana Mola?
Una mujer laica,
A
una
laywoman,
doctora.
a physician.
¿Por qué la canonizó?
Why did he canonize her?
Porque dio la vida por su bebé.
Because she gave her life for her baby in a time where abortion was rampant.
¿Qué le quería decir al mundo?
What was she telling
Una
the world?
verdadera madre
That a true mother
da la vida por
gives
su
her
hijo.
life for her
al
child,
revés.
not the opposite.
¿Por qué canonizó a dos matrimonios que ni les puedo mencionar el nombre porque
Why
es
did he
italiano?
canonize a
Para
married
enseñar
couple?
que la santidad
To show that
debe vivirse en el
holiness
matrimonio
must be lived
y que
in marriage,
tu esposo
and that your
es tu
husband,
camino de santidad.
your spouse is your
Y tu
path of
esposa
holiness,
es
your
tu
husband is
camino
your
de santidad.
path of holiness, and your wife
Ay,
is your
mami,
path of
pero el mío
holiness.
es una cruz.
Oh, but mine is a cross.
Ah, pues más rápido, mejor.
Well, the faster and better.
Mejor.
Better.
Vas a ir más rápido
You're
a la
going to go
santidad.
faster to holiness.
¿Por qué? ¿Qué dijo el Señor? El que
Why?
quiera seguirme,
What
que
the
¿qué?
Lord did the Lord not say today? He
Que
wants to
cargue
follow
con su
me.
cruz. Cada uno póngale el nombre a la
Deny
cruz.
himself and carry his cross. Each one of you put a name to that cross.
Los hombres santos y las mujeres santas no le tienen miedo a la
Holy men
cruz,
and women are not
como
afraid
Jesús
of the
no se la
cross,
tuvo.
like Jesus was not afraid of the
¿Qué
cross.
hizo Jesús cuando le entregaron
What
el
did
madero?
Jesus say when he was given the
Lo
wood?
besó
He kissed it
y lo abrazó.
and he embraced it.
¿Por qué?
Why?
Porque con esa cruz nos
Because with
salvaba.
that cross, he was saving us.
¿Costaba? ¿Sufría?
Was it difficult? Did he
Más
suffer?
de lo que nos podemos imaginar.
More than we
La
can
pasión
imagine.
es
The
pálida,
passion,
hermano,
the movie, The
comparado a
Passion
lo que
is
fue.
pale
La película
compared
estoy
to
hablando.
what it was.
Y muchos no fueron a verla porque es
And
muy
many
dura.
didn't see it because they didn't go watch it because it was
Yo lo
too
hubiera visto en el
difficult.
camino al Calvario.
I would have seen
La
it.
película quedó pálida. Es lo más cercano.
The movie is very
pero
close,
quedó
yes,
pálida.
but it's pale
Pero
compared
Jesús
to the truth.
abraza su cruz porque sabe
But Jesus embraces
que
and
ese es el
cross
camino de
because he knows
salvarnos,
that's the
porque el
path
amor
of
es más
salvation,
fuerte que la
because love
muerte.
is stronger than death,
Porque el amor es más fuerte
because
que esa
love
cruz,
is stronger than
porque el
that
amor es
cross,
más fuerte
because
que el
love
dolor
is
que tenga que
stronger
sufrir.
than the suffering that he had to
Y eso
endure.
tiene que decir nuestro
And that's
corazón a
what
nosotros
our hearts have to
mismos
tell
cuando
us
nosotros mismos
when we
queremos huir
want to flee
de la cruz.
from the cross
Decir, Señor, ¿qué
and
quieres
say,
lograr
Lord,
con esta
what
cruz?
do you want to obtain from this
¿Qué
cross?
quieres lograr?
What do
¿Cuál
you
es tu
want
propósito
to,
final?
what's your final
¿Qué
purpose?
quieres hacer conmigo y qué
What do
quieres
you
hacer a
want to do
través
with
de
me
mí?
and through
¿Cómo
me?
este dolor, este
How is
sufrimiento
this suffering
abrazado va a salvar a
embraced?
otros? Para
How,
poder
when
entonces
I embrace the
besarlos,
suffering, will
Señor.
save others so that I can kiss it.
Los santos saben discernir
The
las
saints know how to
necesidades de su
discern the
tiempo
needs of their times.
y saben ser creativos.
And
Los
they know how
santos
to
son
be
los más
creative.
creativos del mundo.
The saints are the most creative in the world.
Fíjense que no existían
Notice that
universidades hace unos
universities
cuantos siglos y
didn't
ahora
exist
todo el
until
mundo
a
se
few
mata por
centuries
las
ago, and now
aplicaciones.
people are killing
Y
themselves for
antes
these
de San
applications.
Ignacio de Loyola
And before
no
St.
existían
Ignatius
las
of Loyola,
universidades.
universities didn't exist.
Se las debemos a los jesuitas.
We owe it to the Jesuits.
Hay que purificarlas un poco ahora.
We have to purify them a little bit today.
Pero qué creatividad, ¿verdad?
But what creativity, right?
Los santos no hallaban
The saints,
cómo combatir los males de su tiempo.
they were always looking to
¿Quién ha
combat
visto la película
the
de
times.
Felipe Neri?
Who has seen the movie
Pues
St.
les
Philip
pido que la
Neri?
vean.
I ask you to watch it.
Qué película más bella.
What a beautiful That Saint Philip Neri wanted to be a missionary.
Y él va a Roma a
And he
pedirle al
goes to
Papa
Rome to ask
que lo haga misionero,
the
que lo
Pope to
mande
send
a
him
tierras lejanas a
to faraway
misionar.
lands to be mission,
Y cuando
to do
llega le
missions.
dice,
And
no
when he gets
puedo.
there, he says, you can't.
Se acaba de acabar la cuota
The quota ended
de los
here
misioneros.
of the missionaries.
Y él va saliendo todo
And
cabizbajo,
he's
porque
all
dice,
like,
me acabó mi plan.
my plan ended, so he's all sad, he's
Vamos,
all
y de repente ve a unos niños
lowering
robando
his head. And then all of a sudden, he sees some
y se mete en
boys
el burullo de los
stealing.
niños
And then he gets involved in the
y
middle
le
of this,
pegan, le
the
hacen de
ruckus of
todo,
the
pero hacen que no
boys.
roben.
And he's telling him, don't steal.
Y en ese momento
And
dijo,
at that moment, he said,
encontré
I
mi
found
tierra
my
de
missionary land.
O sea, un santo no se ata
A
su
saint
plan.
is not attached to his
cuál es
plan.
el
A
plan
saint
que Dios
knows
le
what the
presenta
plan
enfrente.
of God is
Y es
before him
bellísimo
and presents
verlo
him.
cómo él va
And it's so
transformando
beautiful to
todos
see
esos
how he
niños
transforms
en las
all
calles,
those children on the streets,
ladrones, malandreros, de todo,
robbers,
cómo los va transformando y los lleva a
gangsters.
vivir
He
juntos.
transforms them and
Y hace una gran comunidad
has
con
them
ellos.
live together and does a great
Después
community with
unos
them.
cuantos hombres se le añaden,
And then a
porque
few
la
men,
santidad atrae.
follow because holiness is attractive.
Y hermanos,
Brothers and
la famosa
sisters,
canción El
the
Paraíso.
famous song, Paraiso,
Paradiso,
Paradiso,
paradiso, que le enseña a los niños, a esos niños
that
que
he
solo
teaches
veían
the
basura,
children, that
les
these
enseña
children
a amar
that
el
only saw
paraíso,
garbage, he taught those children to love
pasar
paradise,
del oscuro
to go from
a la
darkness
luz.
to the light.
Vean la película.
See the movie.
¿Quién ha visto a San Giuseppe Moscati?
Who has seen the movie on Saint Giuseppe
Y el que
Moscati?
no lo ha visto,
And
que
who
lo
hasn't
vea.
seen it, you have to watch it.
Obligatorio.
Mandatory.
Está en el bookstore.
It's in the bookstore.
La película más bella
The most beautiful
que yo he
movie
visto
that I've
de
seen
un santo laico,
of a layman, a lay
un
saint,
doctor.
a physician, a medical
Y
physician.
uno llora desde que
And
empieza
one cries since the beginning,
y se te triplican las lágrimas
and
cuando
your
acaba.
tears are tripled when it ends, the movie
Tanto
ends.
fue así para
It
mí
was
esa
so much
película
for
que
me
acabó la película
that when the movie
y
ended,
me quedé sentada
and I
sin
sat,
poderme mover.
I was sitting there not being able to move,
Asimilando
assimilating
la grandeza de
the
esa alma,
greatness of that soul,
asimilando el
assimilating
testimonio de su vida,
his witness of life,
asimilando su capacidad de
his
amar y
capacity
de renunciar a todo
to love and renounce everything,
por servir como médico a los
to
pobres.
serve as a physician the poor
Hermanos,
people. Brothers and
Cuando
sisters,
hemos ido ya 3 veces a
when
visitar su tumba,
we've gone 3
¿saben qué
times
es
to visit
impresionante?
his tomb, you know what's impressive?
Que es una belleza la
That
tumba.
his tomb is beautiful.
Tienen una gran estatua de él
And they have a
como
great
médico.
statue of him as dressed as a
Nápoles,
physician in
Naples.
Naples.
No Naples, Florida.
Not Naples,
Italia.
Florida. Naples, Italy.
¿Saben a mí qué me impresiona?
Do you know what impressed me the most?
Cada 5 segundos, yo lo
Every
conté con
5
reloj, por
seconds,
eso
I
se lo
counted
digo.
with a watch.
Pasa un joven
A young person passes by
con mochila,
with a book
joven
bag,
adulto.
a young adult
Entonces
with a
en la
backpack.
tumba está la manito
And
de él,
so
porque
in the
él
tomb there's his hand,
pasaba siempre tocando
because he would
las llagas de los
always
enfermos, tocando a los
touch the
enfermos.
wounds
La
of the
manito
sick.
de él que sale de la tumba,
So his hand is extended out
ya
from
está
the
toda
tomb.
pelada,
It's all like
igual que la
peeled,
de la estatua.
just like the
Porque pasan
statue,
cada 5 segundos
because they
jóvenes
pass
con
by,
mochila,
young
tocándole
adults
la
with
mano.
backpacks pass by, touching his
Un día
hand.
le pregunté a uno,
One day I asked
¿y
one,
tú por qué vienes?
and
Porque
why do you
estoy
come?
estudiando medicina y
Because
quiero
I'm
ser
studying
médico como él.
medicine and
O
I
sea
want to
que
be a
todos
doctor like
esos
him.
jóvenes que pasan,
All those young people that pass
lo
by
tienen de modelo
have him
como
as a
doctor
model for
y
of
quieren ser médicos
physicians,
como él.
and they want to
Dígame
be
si
medical
la
doctors
santidad
like him.
no es atractiva.
Isn't holiness attractive?
Los santos saben
The
vivir
saints know how to live
porque saben
because
la sacralidad de
they
la vida,
know
hermano.
the sacredness
Nosotros
of
lo
life.
conocemos.
Do
O
we
sea,
know
no
it?
nos tomemos por
Well,
seguro, for
let us
granted,
not
que
take for
estamos
granted
aquí,
that
que
we're
estamos
here,
vivos.
that we're alive.
Nadie sabemos cuándo nos
Nobody
vamos.
knows when we're
A la
leaving
casa del Padre,
to the
espero.
house of the Father, I hope.
Si no, hay que hacer 500
Then we have to
indulgencias.
do 100 indulgences.
Pero hermanos, nosotros
But brothers and
tenemos que
sisters,
vivir la vida
we have to
en
live life
plenitud.
in the
Y
fullness,
plenitud no es ir a ver
in the
todos los
fullest
cruceros que hay,
realization.
¿ok?
And the fullest realization
estoy en
isn't
contra de
going
los
to
cruceros.
all the cruise ships. And I'm not against
Pero
cruise
eso no
ships,
es la plenitud de la
but that's
vida.
not the fullness of life.
La plenitud de la
The
vida
fullness of life
es
is
vivir para Dios
to
y
live for
para
God
servir a los
and to
demás.
serve others.
La plenitud de la
The
vida es
fullness
vivir
of
para
life is
amar.
to live to love.
Entonces nuestras
And so our
prioridades tienen que
priorities
forjarse desde ahí.
have to be forged from there.
¿Cómo yo amo más?
How can I love
¿Qué me
more?
va a acercar más a Dios?
What's going to draw me closer to
Porque
God?
como el tiempo es
Because
limitado,
since time is limited,
tengo que escoger bien qué
we
hago
have
con
to
mi
choose
tiempo.
wisely. What do I do with my
¿Qué me va a
time?
acercar más a Dios?
What's
¿Qué me
going to
va a
draw me
acercar más
closer
a
to
la
God,
Virgen? ¿Qué me
to
va a
life,
acercar al
to what's going to
Santísimo?
draw me closer
¿Qué me
to Our
va a
Lady, to the
purificar
Blessed Sacrament?
más?
What's going to
¿Qué me
purify
va
me
a
the most?
formar más en la fe?
What's going
Eso
to
es la
form me more in the
prioridad.
faith? That's a
Y lo que
priority.
te sobra,
And what's
vete a
left
todos los
over,
cruceros que quieras,
then go to all the cruise ships
pero
that
con
you
lo que
want,
te sobra.
but with what's left over.
Después de tus prioridades.
After your priorities.
Los santos son hombres y
The
mujeres
saints
de
are men and
voluntad
women
firme.
of firm will.
Nada ni nadie
No one or
les
nothing
hacía retroceder
will
de la voluntad de Dios.
remove them or draw back from
Y
the will
todo
of
les
God.
salía mal en ciertos momentos. Dios
And
lo permite.
in certain moments, well, things didn't
Que
go
las
right.
cosas les salgan mal
And God allowed it
en ciertos momentos.
in certain moments.
Y que vengan persecuciones
And that
fuertes
strong
o que
persecutions would
vengan
come,
obstáculos fuertes.
or
Ningún
that
santo
strong
así ha vivido una
obstacles
vida
would
de
come.
rosa.
No saint has lived a life full of roses.
Ni Santa Rita de Casia,
Not even Saint Rita of Cassia,
que tiene los milagros de las
that has
rosas,
the
¿no?
miracles of the roses, right?
Pero tuvo un espinazo
But
aquí.
she had a thorn right
O sea,
there
que
in the
la
middle of her
rosa le dio
forehead.
una espina.
The rose gave her a thorn.
Si leemos la vida de todos
If we
los
read
santos,
the
o vemos
lives of all the
las
saints, or
películas,
we see the movies, watch the
van a
movies,
ver que todos tuvieron
we're going to
noches
see that they all
oscuras,
had dark nights.
tuvieron persecuciones,
They had persecutions,
malinterpretaciones,
misinterpretations,
calumnias, de
calumny.
todo pasaron
They went through
y
everything.
seguían adelante.
And yet they
Porque el
kept
mal
going
pasa,
forward because
lo único que perdura
evil
es el
comes
bien.
and goes, but the only thing that lasts is the good.
¿Cuánto me queda?
How much time do I have left?
Uy. Los santos
The
aman
saints
la obediencia.
love obedience.
Y los santos saben que sin obediencia no se forja
And the saints know that
la santidad.
without obedience, you can't forge holiness.
Los santos no son ciegos.
The saints are not blind.
No es que como son santos,
Since
ellos no
they're
ven el
saints,
mal
they
en
don't
nadie.
see
No,
the
no,
evil
no,
in
no,
anybody.
ven
No,
más que nosotros.
they see it more than we do.
Porque entre más santidad,
Because
entre
the
más
more
luz,
holiness,
entre
the
más
more
bondad,
light,
más
the more
amor, más
goodness, more
caridad,
love and charity,
más tú ves lo opuesto.
more you see the opposite.
Los santos
The saints,
saben que obedecer no es fácil.
do you know that to obey is not easy?
Porque están obedeciendo
Because
tal vez a gente que no
they're
es tan santa como
obeying
ellos.
people that are not as holy as they are.
Tal vez están obedeciendo
Maybe they're
algo que ellos
obeying something that they
consideran un
consider
error.
is a mistake,
Como Padre Pio, ¿ah?
like Saint Padre Pio.
10 años sin celebrar
10
misa
years
pública.
without celebrating Mass in public.
Pero tal vez el Señor
Well,
en su plan
the Lord in
necesitaba
His
eso para
plan
el
needed
Padre
that
Pío.
for Padre Pio,
Y él obedeció.
and he obeyed.
Y ni siquiera sacaba
And
cuando
he
todos
didn't
estén
say,
dormidos,
"Oh,
voy
when
a
everybody's
sacar mi
asleep,
cabeza por
I'm
la
going to
ventana
pop out my
para que
head from
todos
the
mis
window
seguidores me
so that
vean".
all my followers can see me."
No, hermano.
No, brothers and sisters.
Los
He
santos
went in
tienen
hiding.
muchos
Saints
seguidores,
had many followers,
pero por una razón,
but because only one reason,
por su santidad,
because of their holiness,
por lo que enseñan.
what they taught.
Porque ahora hay un montón de gente,
Because now there's lots of
en la
people
iglesia
in the
que les
church
encanta
that
tener un
love
montón de seguidores,
that they love to have lots of followers,
pero por fama.
but because of fame,
Ay, para que digan que mi iglesia
so
se
that they can say
repleta.
that my church is so full.
Mire, madre, cuando
Look,
voy a
mother,
misión,
when I
mire
go on mission, look, mother, look,
cuánta gente.
look how many people.
Y le dije, ¿cuántos de
And I
esos se
said,
confiesan,
oh,
por
great,
favor?
and how many of those go to confession?
Ay, madre, no hablemos de eso.
Oh,
que
let's
aquella
not speak
cantidad.
about
No, yo
that.
sí quiero hablar de eso,
Well, I
porque
do
no
want to
se
speak
trata de
about that because it's not
masas,
about the tons
se
of
trata de
people.
conversión.
It's about conversions.
Entonces tenemos
And
que
so
tener
we
una
have
distinción muy
to have a
grande.
clear
Las
distinction.
multitudes no nos hablan necesariamente
Multitudes
de
don't speak to
santidad.
us necessarily about holiness.
Solo las multitudes que
Only the
permanecen.
multitudes that remain.
Solo las que
Only
permanecen.
the
Las que
ones that
después que
remain.
muere el santo,
That when the
siguen
saint dies,
viviendo lo que el santo
they
enseñó.
continue living what the
Esas son las
saint taught.
multitudes
Those are
permanentes.
the true multitudes.
Pero no la del padre
Not the
famoso
one
que
of
hace
that famous
exorcismos,
priest who
las
does
misas que se
exorcism
replete,
and
todo
the
el mundo
masses
se
are so
exorciza,
full
puro
and everybody
invento.
gets
Unos
exorcised.
son de verdad y los otros
Some
pegan
are
gritos
true, yeah,
con
but
lo que
others
gritan.
are making it up with all the fake screams that
Pero
they're
hermanos, Dios no
producing.
quiere eso.
Brothers and sisters, the Lord doesn't want
¿Ustedes vieron
this.
los exorcismos cómo los hacía Jesús
Did you see how
en
Jesus
el
did the
Evangelio?
exorcisms in the gospel?
Con una calma.
With such a calm.
Porque la autoridad no
Because
necesita
authority
gritos.
doesn't need any
La
screaming.
autoridad necesita que lo hagas en
Authority
el
needs
nombre
that
de
you do it in
Jesucristo.
the name of Jesus
Eso es
Christ.
todo.
That's all. Not because you're going to scream louder that the Spirit's going to come out. On the contrary, the Spirit will stay more stuck because the first scream is the Spirit. Because in between the screaming and the screaming, the screaming of the Spirit will hide. But if you say in the name of Jesus Christ, leave, and you're going to see how you will leave. The saints intercede for many miracles. And why? Because they're so transparent that God can act so freely in them with full freedom. It's not the saint who does the miracle. It's God in that saint and with that saint. Let's be clear about that. Because there are people that say, why have this devotion? Because it's not Padre Pio who heals. Of course it's God who heals. But he did it through Padre Pio. And that's why he did it that way. Why? Because that saint identified himself so much with Christ that Christ can do in and through him anything that he wants. It's so very important because many times people are going to tell us, even in the Catholic Church, don't be so friendly with all the saints. Don't do a novena to Saint Joseph to get you a good husband. Well, do 20 novenas to get you a good husband, you or your children. Your daughters, because he was a good husband. He was the virginal husband of Our Lady. Who better than to be able to get a husband? And because I'm sure that Jesus doesn't deny anything to Saint Joseph. Do you think that little boy is going to deny anything to his virginal father? And to conclude, the saints have something that we're lacking. That we're really lacking in our times. They have the clear compass. Why do they have a clear compass? Because they're people who are formed. Because they know the truth. And any little bridge that comes by there, they don't believe it. But Father such and such said it. I don't care. If the catechism doesn't say it, it's not true. Because St. Paul said it. Even if an angel of light appears to me, if he tells me something contrary to the gospel, let it be anathema. A strong word. Anathema is what's used with the heretics. Heretics. The heresies. We live in times of novelties. We want something new all the time. Truth has 2,000 years, and his name is Jesus Christ. And what he said, and the church serves the word of Jesus Christ. Cannot change it. Jesus said it. I'm not saying anything different. Jesus said it. Not even one letter can be changed. Do you know why? Because our salvation depends on how we live the truth. But we live in a world that the truth is relative. The truth is what you think or feel. That's why there's so many people going to hell. Our Lady said it in Fatima. Because only truth saves us. And the truth is a person. Jesus Christ. So when I ask, do you believe in Jesus Christ? Oh. Do you believe in Jesus Christ? Yes. Now, yes. All right. Now, yes. Now I believe that you believe. Now the second part, which is the same. Do you believe in every word and every gesture and every work that he did? Yes. And so even whoever appears to you appears and says something contrary, don't say anathema so you can be charitable, but do close your ears and enter through a sure path, a firm rock, that truth that has sustained us, and that truth for which many saints had shed their blood. That truth that even child martyrs
se
have
va a
given their
tratar a la
blood.
Eucaristía como
How
cualquier
can we
cosa,
treat
hermano?
the Eucharist as any other
Es
thing?
Jesús mismo.
It's Jesus Christ himself.
¿Cómo no le vamos a dar
How
a
are we
Jesús
not
lo
going to give
mejor
Jesus the best?
si es Jesús mismo?
It's Jesus Christ. It's
¿Cómo?
Jesus
Ay,
himself.
ay, es que hoy no te van a ir a misa.
Oh, today I don't feel
Díganle
like
eso a
going to
San
Mass.
Narciso, ¿ah?
Say that to St.
Ese
Narcissus,
niñito de 9 años
the 9-year-old boy,
que para llevar la Eucaristía a
that
las
to
catacumbas
take the Eucharist
murió
to the
apedreado
catacombs, he
y luego
died
decapitado.
beaten by rocks
¿Y
and then
saben lo que hacían
decapitated.
mientras lo apedreaban?
And what did he do
Consumía todas las hostias
meanwhile they were stoning
para
him?
que
He
nadie
consumed all the
hiciera
hosts
ni reverencia a la
so that no one would
Nos
do
falta el
irreverence
coraje
to
de
the
San
host.
Narciso, un niñito
We
de
need the
8 años.
courage of St.
Nos
Narcisio,
hace el nos falta
an
el
8-year-old
coraje
boy.
de
We
San
need the courage
Joseito,
of St. Joseito,
de las cristiadas.
from the
Viva
from
Cristo Rey.
Viva Cristo Rey,
Y
from
le
the
pusieron ahí
Cristiadas.
para tentarlo enfrente
And they
del
put him
hueco
to
a la
tempt
mamá,
him.
para tentarlo.
They tempted him by putting his mom in front
La
of
mamá
the
llorando porque van a matar a su hijo.
of his
¿Y
grave.
qué le contesta José?
And the mom was crying, and what did Joseito answer?
Nunca ha sido tan fácil, mami,
Mother,
ganarse el cielo.
it's never been so
Bye.
easy to gain heaven. Bye.
Cla,
And they shot
disparado en
him.
la cabeza.
They shot him in the
Después de haber
head.
sido torturado,
After having been
y
tortured,
haber hecho caminado
having made him walk
cuadras de
blocks
piedra
and
con los
blocks
pies todos lacerados
with
con
his feet
cuchillo.
all lacerated
Esos son los santos, hermano.
by knives. Those are the saints.
Entonces nosotros la pregunta
And
de hoy,
so
si
the
la
question
iglesia
today is,
necesita santos,
if the church needs saints,
aprendamos la
let us learn the
pedagogía
pedagogy
de los santos
of the saints.
y no nos conformemos
And
con
let us not
devoción
conform
a los
ourselves
santos.
with a
Es muy
devotion.
importante,
It's very important, yes.
muy importante tener
Very important
devoción
to
a los
have
santos.
devotions to the saints.
Pero junto con la devoción
But with the
debe
devotion,
haber el
we
conocimiento
need
de su vida.
the knowledge
Y esa vida
of
me
their
tiene que
lives.
enseñar
And
algo
that
a mí.
life has to teach me something today.
Dios le bendiga.
May God bless you.